When I was in high school, we moved from the house I had grown up in to a house in the next town over. The house we moved into was built in the 1970s. My bedroom was in the basement. The basement had ceiling tiles like you used to see in the ceilings of office buildings. After about a year of living in the house, we decided to tear out the ceiling tiles and put up sheetrock. My dad told me I had to tear out the ceiling tiles in my room. I put it off all day and finally started tearing them out at night. After about 3 tiles, I took one down, and what I thought was a piece of paper fluttered to the floor and landed at my feet. I picked it up. It was a portrait. It was a portrait of a pale blonde girl, maybe 11 or 12 years old. Her face looked tired. Her hair was long and messy. She was standing in a wooded area. She was staring at the camera when the picture was taken, but also past the camera, like she wasn't all there. I looked at her for a long time before I noticed the boulder in the background, partially blocked by her from view. After a second or two of staring at the boulder, I realized I recognized where this picture was taken, near a trailhead in the mountains I had been to a few times. I examined the photo more closely. I wondered why this photo had been placed in the ceiling. I wondered who took the picture. Did the girl live in this house? Did she put the photo there? The photo was old, the colors were faded, probably taken in the 80s if I had to guess. I decided to do some research. I got online and searched up the address to our new house. I searched for different things for over an hour to try to figure out who lived there. I couldn't find anything until I thought to search construction permits and land deeds. That eventually led me to the family that had built this house. They had a daughter about the same age as the girl in the portrait. What I discovered next is what really sent me over the edge. Their girl went missing when she was 12 years old, and she was never found. The spot she went missing in was the same area as where the photo was taken. Who put it there, and why? That night, I couldn't quit thinking about it. I couldn't quit looking at the spot where the photo had fallen from. I needed to go to the place in the portrait. It was about an hour from where I lived. I knew I would need to go on a Saturday in order to have enough time to search the area. That week was a long one, but the day finally came. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. I packed some water and snacks and got to the trailhead area by about 7 a.m. As I got out of my car and walked around, I remembered the boulder from the picture was taken about 100 yards into the woods. I slowly made my way up the trail. The trees were thicker and bigger than I remembered. The sounds of birds and a breeze in the treetops filled the air. The further I walked, the more I got a weird feeling, like someone was following me. I stopped and slowly scanned the forest, looking back behind me to the ground I had covered. I didn't see anything. I kept going, and a few minutes later I arrived at the boulder. I walked to the area, stopping every few feet to search and change my angle of sight. I didn't see anything unusual. I circled the area for maybe 30 minutes, looking behind every tree, every bush. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Finally, I grew tired, and frankly, I got bored. My gaze fell back on the boulder. It was big, about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. I climbed on top of the boulder and sat down. I took the water bottle out of my backpack and had a drink of water. I set my water bottle on the boulder and scanned the area again. I thought I saw something move through the trees on the other side of a small clearing opposite the boulder. I grabbed my binoculars and focused in on the spot, but it turned out to be nothing. I reached back for my water and knocked it over with the back of my hand. It rolled down the boulder and fell off the side, landing at the bottom. When it landed, it made a noise I wasn't expecting. A clang, like it had hit something metal. I scurried down the boulder and picked up my bottle. I didn't see what it had hit. There wasn't anything metal underneath it. I moved some leaves, dirt, and debris away from where it landed. As I brushed things away with my hand, I could feel something smooth underneath. I kept cleaning things away until I could see that it was some sort of lid or door. There was a latch and a ring where a padlock could go, but there was no padlock. I flipped the latch off and lifted the door up. It didn't budge at first. I had to grab it with 2 hands and pull as hard as I could. With a grunt, it finally came open. Inside, I could see a ladder going down. Then a wave of fear hit me. Again, a feeling that someone was watching me, this time stronger than before. I turned around and carefully scanned the area. No one. It took me quite some time to decide what to do. The more I stared down the hatch, the more I realized this was my chance to find out if it held any clues to what happened to the girl. I retrieved a flashlight from my backpack and started down the hatch. I reached the bottom of the ladder and pointed my flashlight around. It was a room, like a dungeon, with an old mangy mattress on the floor with a bunch of stains from who knows what. Some of the stains looked like blood. I moved over to the mattress for a closer look. Definitely some blood on there. I noticed a remnant of clothing on the mattress. I reached down and picked it up. After examining it, something struck me. I reached into my backpack and pulled out the portrait. I looked at the shirt the girl was wearing. It had blue stripes. The piece I held in my hand also appeared to have stripes, though I couldn't tell what color they were from the grime and the faded cloth. I stuffed it in my pocket and looked around the room again. I noticed a nook, or maybe a passageway, at the far corner of the room. I cautiously moved over for a closer look. The whole room had dirt walls, as if it had been dug out by hand. In the corner, it was a passageway, one that got shorter and narrower the further it went. I followed it for maybe 50 feet, then I stopped abruptly. I'm not sure why I stopped. Something felt off. I was about to turn around when something caught my eye at the end of the passageway. I flipped my light up as fast as I could. I caught a glimpse of a moving creature, something, maybe a man. It was there and then it was gone. I couldn't be sure. To this day, I'm not sure what it was. But I believe it was a human, albeit it was hunched over and moved grotesquely. I considered chasing after it, but before I could, I heard something that sent a shiver down my spine. The sound of the hatch door slamming shut. Without a thought, I charged back to the room, and I was about to start up the ladder, but then a thought occurred to me. Maybe it's a trap. I froze. I heard a noise at the back of the room, from the direction of the passageway. I quickly decided I had no choice but to go up the hatch. I climbed the ladder in a panic. I reached the door, expecting it to be locked. I pushed on it, and it wouldn't budge. I wedged myself up against the hatch, using my back and shoulder to try and pry the hatch up, while pushing with my legs on the step of the ladder. It wouldn't budge. After a minute or two of pounding against the hatch, I knew it was hopeless. I realized my only hope was to go look for something I could use as a tool to get it open. I inched my way back down the ladder with dread. I searched the room again, careful to keep my ear tilted to the passageway. There was nothing in the main room that I could use. Almost against my will, my head turned to the passageway. With a sigh, I inched toward it. I flipped around the corner like a cop. The passageway was clear. I inched down it further and further until I had to crouch to keep from hitting my head. Then I heard something move behind me. I flipped around, shining the light. There was nothing there. I turned back and looked at the passageway again. I thought better of it and turned back. Maybe I could try the hatch again. I crept back towards the room. As I turned into the room, something struck me from behind. The next thing I remember, I was coming to on the ground. There was a large club-like stick on the ground next to me. The back of my head throbbed. There was a blinding light coming from the corner of the room. As I rubbed my head, things came into better focus. I realized the light was coming from the hatch. It was open. I hurried to my feet and headed for the hatch. I climbed up as quickly as my dizziness would allow. Once I got out of the hatch into the light of day, it was blinding. All I could see was white for what felt like forever, until my eyes could adjust. As things came into focus, I searched about in every direction to see who or what closed the hatch. I didn't see anybody, and wasn't about to stay there any longer than I had to. I sprinted into the woods back the direction of where I had parked. I went directly to the police to tell them what I had found. When I got to the part about finding the piece of clothing, I reached into my pants to pull it out, and it wasn't there. I could see the disbelief wash over them immediately. After some pleading, they told me they would check it out. A week later, when I hadn't seen anything in the news, I called the police. They told me they found nothing. I finally worked up the courage to go back to the hatch about 3 weeks later. The spot where the hatch door had been was gone. Just dirt. I spent 10 minutes digging with my feet and hands, but found nothing. To this day, the mystery of the girl remains unsolved.